Hi, it's Frenchy Bets. Welcome back to another video. Today we got the rest of the 8 games breakdown for Sunday and Monday, and Fanduel Draftkings cash lineup for the Sunday main slate. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. So let's jump right into these game previews. Starting off with the Broncos at the Bears. At the Broncos as 3.5-point favorites with a total of 46.5. On the Broncos side of things, I think Russell Wilson is a solid play. He's looked good so far this year, much better than he did last year. I know he was bailed out by a Hail Mary in one game, but he's thrown for over 300 yards in 2 out of 3 games. And throwing a decent amount of touchdowns, 1, 2, and 3. So averaging 2 a game. And the Bears defense is awful. So I think Russell Wilson's a solid play. Should be a top 12 quarterback pretty easily. If he's not in this matchup, he might be going back to the Russ of last year. So Russ is a good play here. Running back wise, you can definitely, in this matchup, you can definitely play Javonte Williams. I know it hasn't been great, and he doesn't have any touchdowns on the year. I mean, he hasn't, his highest rushing yards is 52, but you know you're going to get a couple catches from him out of the backfield. So this is a great matchup for really everybody going against the Bears. The Bears are the 3rd worst team at giving up fantasy points so far on the year to running backs. Samaje Perine, I'm really disappointed in him. I thought he would have the Kamara role in Sean Payton's offense, but it's just not there. So Javonte's in though. Receivers wise, Cortland Sutton's in. Jerry Jeudy, dealing with his injury, but he's should be back. So I'm playing Jeudy. And Marvin Mims, if you want to take a dart throw, Judy's probably a wide receiver 3 flex type play. Marvin Mims, it's really just taking a shot on if he can catch a deep ball. And he's hardly on the field at all, but when he is, they're throwing to him, and he's throwing deep. I mean, he's only got 7 receptions on the year, but he leads the team in receiving yards. So I'm good if you want to take a dart throw on Marvin Mims. And tight ends, I'm not interested. Over on the Bears side of things, Justin Fields, one of the most disappointing fantasy players so far on the year. Great matchup though. Denver's defense seems to have disappeared from what it was last year. Everyone's throwing the ball all over. I mean, Tua and the Dolphins just put up 70 points on them. So I think you can play Justin Fields here. And if he can't produce against the Broncos, I'd hate to drop him because we know his upside. And last year he got off to a terrible start and turned it on in the second half of the season. So I'd hate to say to drop him, but if he doesn't produce against the Broncos, I wouldn't be opposed to dropping him, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I think you can play Fields. Khalil Herbert, a great matchup. Well, obviously all the Broncos' defensive stats are kind of skewed by the last week's game, but the Broncos don't have a good defense. So Khalil Herbert's in for me. DJ Moore, I don't mind if you want to play DJ Moore. I don't really want to play any of the other receiving options, but he's had 2 solid games. Last week, only 3 catches for 41 yards, but he scored, so that's not a bad game. And then the week before, 6 for 104. So DJ Moore's in as a wide receiver 2 for me, and that's it on that game. I'm gonna try and make these short and sweet for the games that don't need a whole lot of explanation. Moving on to the Ravens and Browns. Browns are 1.5 point favorite with a total of 39.5. On the Ravens side of things, I really don't want to play anyone. Lamar hasn't looked great, and the Browns defense, I mean, they're 32nd or best. So they're the best against quarterbacks, second best against running backs, best against receivers, best against tight ends. So on the Ravens side of things, I'm really trying to sit all of them if I can. They they haven't done much, and we're going against the best fantasy defense in the league. So Lamar, you might have to play him, but if you picked up someone else off the waiver wire, if you picked up a Kirk Cousins, I would much rather play Kirk Cousins with his matchup than Lamar. I mean, he rushed for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns last week, so Lamar is a tough one. He's most likely in, unless you picked up Kirk Cousins or someone else with a great matchup for this week. But running backs, Justice Hill's looking like he's gonna play, but I'm not interested in playing either one of the running backs against this defense. Pass catchers, Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers in a PPR or half PPR maybe. In a standard league, I'm not playing Zay Flowers. I mean, he's getting a ton of targets and catches, but no yards. Last week, 8 catches for 48 yards. That's just not what you want to see. So, Zay Flowers in a PPR, I'm playing. Mark Andrews, he's a tight end, so you're playing Mark Andrews. And that's it on the Ravens side of things. Over on the Browns side of things, we got to see what's going on with Deshaun Watson. Not looking good for him to play. He's hardly thrown at all, been limited all week. But if he does play, it's not a great matchup, but he looked pretty good last week. He was the best quarterback on the week with a clean pocket, completed a very high percentage of his passes when he was clean. So I'm good with playing Deshaun Watson if he plays, unless you got Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is just playing at an elite level right now and has a solid matchup. If Deshaun Watson doesn't play, it'll be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I think he could be a value for a fantasy quarterback if you don't have anyone else. He runs the ball over 600 yards and rushing in college every season, so I'm good with playing him. Obviously, that's a much riskier play. I'd look to see if there's better options out there on waivers available. But other than that, Isaiah Ford, you can play. It's not a bad matchup. Not great, but middle of the pack for Jerome Ford. Last week was ugly, but Tennessee's got a great run defense. The week before against Pittsburgh, 106. And last week he did score and had scored twice and had solid game actually, mixing in his 2 catches for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he was good for you last week, even though the yards weren't there. So Jerome Ford's in for me, no matter who's at quarterback. Amari Cooper, he's in. Again, no matter who's at quarterback, you can't sit Amari Cooper. Elijah Moore, if it's Deshaun Watson. I'm playing Elijah Moore. I mean, he's getting a ton of targets. 7, 9, and 9 for his 3 games. Last week he caught all 9 targets, only 49 yards, but PPR league, I'm definitely playing Elijah Moore. And I'm not interested in David Njoku. So over to the Bengals at the Titans. Bengals are 2.5-point favorite with a total of 41. Starting off with the Bengals. Joe Burrow is in. Tennessee's a great run defense, not a great pass defense. They're a pass funnel team. They just shut down the run, so you have to throw the ball on them. So Joe Burrow's in. Joe Mixon, you got to play him with his talent. He's always got a chance to score for you. But like I said, it's not good at all for running backs against the Titans. But maybe he can give us a Jerome Ford and score twice. And he should have 3 or 4 catches. So I'm good with playing Mixon. Just have to temper our expectations a little bit. Maybe a RB2. And Jamar Chase is obviously in. T. Higgins is in. That's it. Over on the Titans side of things, I'm not playing anyone really. Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry has just looked absolutely awful. And I'm not saying that it's his fault, but he's just looked terrible. So you're probably playing Henry, but I think going forward the rest of the season, we got to know that it's not King Henry anymore. It's a low-end RB2 or flex play at this point. I mean, he could turn around, but he's just looked so bad. I don't see it happening anytime soon. I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or what, but he just doesn't even look like the same guy running the ball. And then I'm not playing anyone else on the Titans. On to the Raiders at the Chargers. Chargers 4.5-point favorites with a total of 49.5. On the Raiders side of things, it's not looking like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play last I looked. No. So, it's going to be Brian Hoyer. If Jimmy Garoppolo was in, I wouldn't mind playing him just because the Chargers are the worst in the league against quarterbacks, fantasy-wise. So, but I'm not playing Brian Hoyer. Jimmy Garoppolo, I might consider if I was desperate. Maybe if I had Deshaun Watson and he ends up not playing, since Garoppolo's in the later games, the 4 o'clock games, be a good backup guy. But I don't think Garoppolo's playing. So running backs wise, Josh Jacobs is in. It's a solid matchup for him here, and he's got to bounce back, especially if Garoppolo is out. I think they'll lean on the run a little bit more. So Jacobs is definitely in. And then Devontae Adams, obviously he's in. And Jacoby Myers is a good play. The Chargers are the worst team in the league against fantasy receivers. And Jacoby Myers has looked good on the year. My Patriots making a mistake letting him go and signing Juju. But so that's it on the Raiders side of things. Chargers, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. It's Justin Herbert. Eckler, I don't think's going to play. So Josh Kelly, it's a good matchup, but Josh Kelly's looked awful since the first game. It was a good matchup last week, and he looked awful. So I'm looking for other options. With the state of the running back position right now, you might have to play Kelly, but I'm definitely looking for other options. I just don't see Josh Kelly. thought it was an outlier with his performance in week 1, and so far that's proved to be true. So, on the as far as receivers, Keenan Allen's in. He's been elite all year, and Josh Palmer is in for me. Especially if I need a guy I know is going to get some points. Quentin Johnston, it's a big risk to play him this week. I just don't think that he's going to be the guy yet. I know they said that he's going to get more work, but I mean that's pretty obvious when your star receiver goes down. Obviously, the next guy up is going to get more work, but I just see it as Keenan Allen and Palmer. And some of it I think is going to leak into the tight ends. So Parham doesn't get a ton of catches, but they look for him when they're down in the red zone. So I'm okay if you want to take the shot on Parham and hope he finds the end zone. I mean, he's got the most receiving touchdowns on the team right now with 3. But Gerald Everett, I think Gerald Everett's a solid play. He's getting a lot more targets than Parham. Last week he had 6. It caught them all. Only 30 yards, but he's a tight end, so you can throw him in there. I'm okay if you want to take a shot on either one of these tight ends if you're streaming the position. On to the next game. Close down. Which is the Patriots at the Cowboys. Cowboys 6.5 point favorites with a total of 43.5. Starting off with the Patriots. Mac Jones the Patriots are pretty simple for me. They don't have anybody. No Mac Jones. Ramondre Stevenson, you can play. I know the Cowboys defense is elite, and Ramondre hasn't looked good running the ball, but he's been getting targets out of the backfield, and that's a ton of value, especially in a full PPR league. But Zeke is a no. And then their pass catchers are no. Nobody. Maybe Hunter Henry. I'm okay playing Hunter Henry, but that's really it. Nobody else. Over on the Cowboys side of things, this just isn't a good matchup. We got 2 good defenses, 2 great defenses, and 2 offenses that haven't looked good. So I'm trying to sit Dak if I can. He hasn't been good this year. Patriots are good against the quarterback. They're 30th in the league at giving up fantasy points to the quarterback. And Dak just hasn't looked good at all. I mean, there's been against the Jets, I guess you were okay with his performance, but I don't believe he's finished as a top 12 quarterback yet in these 3 games. And he went against the Giants, Jets, and Cardinals. And I know the Jets have a good defense, but that's the game he looked the best in. Against the Cardinals last week, 249, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. So I'm trying to avoid playing Dak. Tony Pollard is in. Obviously, he's elite, and you're playing him no matter what the matchup is. And CeeDee Lamb is in. Another elite receiver. You're playing him regardless of matchup. And that's really it. Jake Ferguson. Patriots are good against tight ends, but Jake Ferguson's getting targets, and he's a tight end. So I'm all right if you want to take the chance on him in a PPR league. On to the Cardinals at the 49ers. 49ers 14 point favorites with a total of 43.5. Starting off with the Cardinals. Uh, Obviously, Josh Dobbs is not in consideration. James Conner, he's just getting all the work, and I know it's not a good matchup at all, but it doesn't matter the matchup or if they win or lose. James Conner's been a top 24 running back going back like to last season, like 10 straight games. And Cardinals didn't just get bad, they've been bad. They've only won one of them. So James Conner's in. And then receivers wise, Hollywood. Sorry. Hollywood, you can. I mean, we know the Cardinals are going to be down, or should be, unless they shock the world again. So they're going to be throwing the ball a ton. So you can you can play Hollywood. He was limited for a thumb injury, so he's questionable. But Hollywood's a good player. He scored in back-to-back weeks, so you can throw him in there. And Rondale Moore, something to keep an eye on. The Cardinals' backup running back, Keontae Ingram. It's not looking like he's gonna play, and I think Rondale Moore is gonna get some carries out of the backfield. He had 3 carries last week, 54 yards and a touchdown. To go along with his 4 catches, only 8 yards on those, but I think you can take a shot on Rondale Moore. Maybe take on a little bit of a reduced Debo role. Maybe give us 5 carries and 4 or 5 catches, and with his speed and elusiveness, he's got a chance to take anything to the house. So, over on the Niners side of things, Brock Purdy he's a solid play for me. Arizona, obviously a terrible defense, terrible team all around. So, and Brock Purdy's thrown in 2 touchdown passes in every game he started besides 1 in the regular season, going back to last year. So Brock Purdy's in for me. CMC is just going to have an absolute monster game. Debo's out. Brandon Ayuk's dealing with an injury. CMC's he'll be a running back 1. Obviously, you know he's in. Pass catchers, like I said, Debo's out. Ayuk's dealing with a shoulder injury. I just saw that they're saying that he's going to play. But it does make me a little nervous for a re-injury. I mean, in the game that he hurt in, he got hurt and came out and then went back in and then got hurt again. So I am a little nervous for re-injury, but I'm playing Ayuk, obviously, in this matchup. And George Kittle going to have a great game. With the 49ers, if one of their 4 guys is out between CMC, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, if one of those 4 are out, most times the other 3 are all great. And especially if Ayuk does happen to get re-injured or is limited in any capacity, Kittle and CMC are just going to be absolute monsters this week. Kittle last week, with Ayuk out, pull up his stats real quick. He had a good game, his first good game of the year. Had 9 targets, 7 catches for 90 yards. So now with Debo out, I'm expecting a similar stat line. 6 to 8 grabs, close to 100 yards, and I think he gets in the end zone. Actually, I'll guarantee he gets in the end zone this week. Doesn't have any touchdowns on the year. Game 4, Kittle's getting in the end zone. On to the Chiefs and the Jets. The Chiefs 8.5 point favorites with a 41.5 total. Starting off with the Chiefs side of things, obviously Patrick Mahomes is in. Isaiah Pacheco actually looked really good. If you look at his snap percentage, it doesn't look great, but he played the majority of the snaps when Mahomes was in. That game was a blowout, and once they put the backups in, Pacheco came out with them and didn't go back in. So I think Pacheco is a solid play here. The Jets are middle of the pack against running backs. You can always play McKinnon and hope he grabs a couple, gets in the red zone and has a couple touchdown catches. Receivers, I'm not interested in playing any of them, to be honest. I'm just done with the Chiefs receivers until we start to see a trend of one guy starting to break out. So I'm not dropping any of them if I have them on my team, but I'm not starting any of them. And then obviously Kelsey is in. Over on the Jets side of things, I'm not playing anyone other than Garrett Wilson if you have to, but I'm good if you want to sit Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall has looked awful. He's had one good run on the year. Dalvin Cook has done nothing. Garrett Wilson hasn't done a ton, but he's super talented, elite athleticism. But with Zach Wilson throwing the ball, the Chiefs' defense is for real, and they've looked great. So if you got other receivers that have better matchups, I'm good with playing them. If you take away the names of the receivers and look at their stats and matchups, look at it that way. We gotta. I know it's Garrett Wilson, and he got elite talent, but it's just the fact of the season with Zach Wilson playing. So I'm more than okay sitting Garrett Wilson. It's just not gonna, with Zach Wilson throwing. This team's just so bad. The Jets have to do something. They have the offensive weapons. They have a good defense. They have to do something, or they're just throwing the season away for no reason. So that's all I got to say about the Jets. On to the Monday night game, the Seahawks at the Giants. Seahawks 1.5-point favorite with a total of 47.5. Starting off with the Seahawks. Geno has been all right this year. Not anything great, but he's been okay. And the Giants aren't a bad matchup. They're middle of the pack against quarterbacks. So Geno, I'm good with playing. I think he should be a top 15 guy. Thing with Geno is he's very rarely gonna kill your fantasy week. He might not win you the week with a 40-50 point game, but most of the time he's not going to lose you the week. He's pretty steady. Running backs wise, Kenneth Walker's in. He's looked good. Zach Charbonnet. It's a good matchup for the Giants. Just Charbonnet just hasn't been doing much. I wish I would have been higher on Kenneth Walker, but I really thought Charbonnet would take more work from him. Last week he did have 9 carries, but the first 2 weeks only 3 and 4 carries. He's not getting targets out of the backfield either. But you can take a chance with a good matchup if you have to. Definitely won't be my first choice. Maybe a low end flex type play. Receivers, DK Metcalf's in. If he plays, he's been questionable with the rib injury. I think he's going to play. So DK's in, Tyler Lockett's in, and I'm sitting JSN. And I'm actually okay if you need to drop someone. If you need to drop someone, you got a Saquon Barkley or Deshaun Watson, someone that you're counting on playing, and they get ruled out late Sunday, I'm okay with dropping JSN. I don't think you need to keep him. I said it at the beginning of the year that he wasn't going to take over for DK or Lockett, and it's showing true. He's just flat out not. So I wouldn't recommend to drop him if you have other options, but it's not the worst thing if you do need the roster spot. So I'm good with dropping him if you have to. Over on the Giants side of things, Daniel Jones. I'm good with playing Danny Dimes this week. No, it hasn't been too pretty for him, but Seattle's a good matchup, and Danny Dimes, you're going to get a little bit of rushing out of him, a little bit of boost to his points, so I'm good with playing him. Saquon, if he does play, obviously he's in. If he doesn't play, I'm not interested in any of the running backs, just like I haven't been. And I've said it the whole time, I'm not interested in Breida. Receivers, not really interested. I'm playing Waller. I know he hasn't been great, but he's a tight end, and he's a very talented tight end at that. So Waller, he is leading the team in receiving yards. So Waller's in. We just gotta hope he can. Week 2, it had a good game. 6 catches for 76. No touchdowns on the year. So hopefully he can find the end zone for us. And that is it on the Giants side of things. So that's all our breakdown. Jump over to the Fanduel and Draftkings cash lineups. All right, time to build out these Fanduel and Draftkings lineups. I start filling it out a little bit, just to save a little bit of time. So, starting off with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. I think it's a good price, and we know he's going to run the ball. So, at 7,600 on FanDuel, I like that price for him. Also like Joe Burrow at 7,200, but right for now I'm going to start out with Anthony Richardson there. And CMC, I just talked about him. I'm going to have a monster game, so I'm putting CMC in there. And at at receiver, I got Puka in there. I think Puka Nacua is going to have a little bit of a bounce back game. Last week he wasn't great, but I think he comes back and has another great game. So he's in there. And I'm looking at the Houston receivers. Nico Collins is 6,400 and Tank Dell's 6,200. So I'm going to throw Tank Dell in there right now, just because he's cheaper, and it could be either one of them at this point. Going backwards a little bit, back to our other running back. And let's see. James Conner, only 6,300 is enticing. What? I'm going with Khalil Herbert in this spot. Great matchup against Denver, only 5,800. So go with that route. I want to try and get another one of these superstar receivers in this lineup. So let's scroll down a little bit for our other receiver. Okay, that's too far. Michael Thomas. Oh, Josh Palmer at 6,100. I think that's a fair price, and I definitely think Palmer's going to be the number 2 receiver on that team right now. Over on the tight ends, looking for a little bit lower. Dalton Kincaid I like against Miami That game should be a shootout, and I like Dalton Kincaid in this matchup. Now, he hasn't done much, but he's cheap at 4,800. So let's throw him in there. Yeah. And then we still got room. We got 8,600 left. Right now, I just have the Texans defense in there. But that might change depending on where we go here. Jamar Chase at 8,200. I think that's a great price for Chase. And a great matchup. So, actually, let's look at what other defenses we can get now. There we go. The Bengals against Tennessee. I think that's a pretty safe lineup. And again, this is for a double up, so we don't need the highest score. We just need to be a little bit above middle of the pack, and I think this lineup can do it. They're all pretty safe guys. So we got Anthony Richardson at quarterback, Christian McCaffrey at running back, Khalil Herbert, Puka Nacua at receiver, Tank Dell, Josh Palmer at tight end, Dalton Kincaid, and Jamar Chase in the flex, and the Bengals defense. Submit that. All right, let's jump on over to Draftkings. And the pricing is different on the different platforms, so you can't just use the same exact lineup. Over here, I'm still gonna roll with Anthony Richardson for now. He's 6,700 and Burrow 6,500. If you don't want to play one of those, really, I'm going to either Tua or Josh Allen and hoping that that game is the shootout that we're expecting. But I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson. CMC, I just don't see how CMC doesn't have an amazing game. Plug a defense in real quick just for placeholder. So it gives us a better idea of how much salary we have left. And our other running back, Alexander Madison at 5,800. I like that price for him. Let's see if there's anyone else lower that I like. Khalil Herbert's only 4,700 on DraftKings, so let's plug Khalil Herbert in. And at receiver, Tyreek Hill is not the highest receiver salary. Justin Jefferson is. So, and Keenan Allen's way down at 7,900. He was the most expensive, I believe, on Fanduel. I'm going to see if I can... I want to try and get two of Tyreek, really two of the top 6 guys between Jefferson, Tyreek, Diggs, Devontae, Keenan Allen, and Jamar Chase. So we're just going to put Tyreek in there right now. And Keenan Allen. And really doesn't leave us with a ton of salary, but like I said, the salaries are cheaper on DraftKings. So I'm looking. I think I am gonna roll with this. Take a shot on Donald Parham at 2,800, and that leaves us with 3,500 left for our last two spots. Really not great options, but I do like having the two, really three studs with Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, and Christian McCaffrey. We might have to change one of them. Where'd he go? Josh Downs, especially on Draftkings where it's full PPR. We're going to plug him in there. Leaves us with 3,500. And it's ugly. Ugly. So we're going to have to change something up a little bit here. Maybe instead of Keenan at 79, Chase is only 100 cheaper. That doesn't get us up to anything. Let's take Tyreek out since he's 9,200. Devontae Adams, a great matchup. It gives us 4,800 left. Still not. There he is. That's what I want. Tank Dell, 4,600. That's who I was looking for. And now got the Panthers defense in there. Got $200 left over. I'm going to go Keenan, take Chase out, just on the off chance that the Bengals don't fix their offense. So, over here on DraftKings, we've got Anthony Richardson at quarterback, Khalil Herbert and Christian McCaffrey at running backs. At receiver, got Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Josh Downs. Tight end, Donald Parham. Flex is Tank Dell with the Panthers defense. Little bit different strategies on the Fanduel one. I went more middle of the pack, all consistent guys, and on DraftKings I kind of loaded up because I like the value of how cheap Tank Dell, Donald Parham, or Khalil Herbert. So that's what we're rolling with, and I will catch you in the next video.